Solve an absolute value equation with one absolute value expression. Now first, let's remember the definition of an absolute value. Absolute value is the distance on the real number line between the real number and the origin. And remember, the origin is 0. So we're counting how many units from the 0 to the number that we're talking about. So we're talking about distance. So if I talk about the absolute value, those are the vertical bars, the absolute value of 4 is 4 because it is 4 units from 0. Also, the absolute value of -4 is 4 because from 0, the number -4 is 4 units from the origin. That is the idea. So the absolute value is always positive. Whatever comes out of the expression is positive. So because both values are 4 units from the origin, the absolute value of 4 and -4 are both 4. Now let's use that to solve some equations. First, nice and basic, the absolute value of x is 6. So thinking about what values of x make this true? Well, there are 2 values of 6, that should be an x, that make this equation true. What is going to equal 6 when it comes out of the absolute value bars? Well, 6 and -6, because the absolute value of 6 is 6 and the absolute value of -6 is 6. Let's use that idea of 2 options to continue on. Next, we're going to solve the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 5. The process. Well, we know the absolute value of the expression being x minus 2, we know that the absolute value of that is 5. Therefore, inside, we know it can either be 5 or -5 because the absolute value of -5 is also a positive 5. So we can write 2 equations and say, okay, we know that inside the x minus 2 can equal 5, as you see on the left, or x minus 2 equals -5, as we see on the right. And now we solve that equation. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. So for my left equation, when I add 2 to both sides, I get x equals 5 plus 2, which is 7. And on the right, when I add 2 to both sides, I get x equals -5 plus 2, which is -3. If you go back into your initial equation and you substitute each of these values in independently, the 7 would get us the absolute value of 5, which is 5. And plugging in -3 gives me -3 minus 2, which is -5, and the absolute value of -5 is also 5. So both of these are solutions to this equation. Let's do another one here. So the absolute value of 2 plus 5x equals 6. Okay, no problem. Again, we're going to write 2 equations and solve for x. So our first equation is the expression equaling to a positive 6. Let's go ahead and just solve this first. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides. Therefore, 5x equals 4. Next, I'm going to divide both sides by 5. So my first value of x is a positive 4/5. Now our second equation is going to be our expression 2 plus 5x equals a -6. Because if the absolute value is a negative, when we take the absolute value of it, it becomes positive. So again, I subtract 2 from both sides, and I get 5x equals -8. I then divide both sides by 5, and I end up with an answer of -8/5. Now we could substitute those back in, and again, we would get a positive 6 and a -6, both of which come out to be a positive 6 when you find the absolute value. Let's just do one more. Solve the absolute value of x minus 3 equals -9. Hopefully there are alarm bells going off in your head right now because you see the absolute value of an expression equals -9. Well, we know the absolute value of an expression is positive. It is never negative. Therefore, there is no value of x that makes this true because no matter what we plug in for x, when it comes out of the absolute value bars, it becomes positive. And so this is simply no solution.